And welcome into this week's edition of The Locker Room. Got a great show up for you today, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. We knew it was going to be a close game this week. We talked about that last week, and it was overtime win against Chattanooga.
It's a thriller, and we expected, like you said, this to be a good game. I don't know if anybody expected it to be as good as it was, and really as many points scored as there were. I mean, it was tied at 35. Going into that overtime session, defense made a big play behind Brandon Bender's interception, and then the offense just made two clutch plays with Eli Jenkins. Just kind of shows that this was an all-around team effort, and they were able to kind of rally around each other, get the win in overtime, and really make the plays down the stretch, which was huge for them.
And the Jacksonville State Gamecocks looking ahead to this week. Friday night lights at Burgess Snow Field.
Right.
Charleston Southern coming to town.
It should be another interesting matchup between Charleston Southern and JSU because Charleston Southern's 10-2. They're the champions of the Big South Conference, and they're one of that's that conference that features a lot of the Carolina teams, and they play a lot of good football over there. But really as compared to OVC.
Right.
But I don't think that with their strength of schedule, they've seen the kind of quality opponent that Jacksonville State is. And JSU has seen teams like Chattanooga now twice, Auburn, Eastern Kentucky. So JSU comes into this matchup not only as the better team, but they're probably the better seasoned team by way of who they've played so far. Another interesting thing for Charleston Southern is that they're on their third-string quarterback behind Danny Crothan, and he was the third stringer behind the first string guy. The first string guy, he was a UAB transfer. He's out of this week's game with a concussion. Their backup guy was Brent Caldwell, and then he's out as well with the injury. So it'll be interesting with a third string quarterback who won last week. 14-6 was the score last week. They normally average about 28 points a game. Jacksonville State's not going to give up that many points. So if JSU gets out to an early lead, it'll be interesting to see what the Buccaneers do on the backside of that.
We've seen a lot of players grow this year for JSU. Eli Jenkins has had an outstanding year. Let's talk about some of the players that JSU's had and we've seen over the past few years, but this year especially really grow.
Yeah, it really kind of blossomed at the beginning of the season. You watch two outstanding receivers kind of just come into their own with Josh Barge and Ruben Gonzalez. Now, Ruben Gonzalez has a couple of injuries here and there, but every now and again, he's been having good games really ever since that second game against Auburn where he made a national name for himself. Bro Bummel is a tight end that had a spectacular year when Spencer Goffin went down. Then you've had other guys shine like Tremaine Pope, who people thought was going to have a pretty good year.
Right.
He's had an outstanding year, and he kind of balances out, does a good job of balancing out the run game with the pass game for them. They lost an All-American up front and offensive lineman Max Holcomb, but they've really kind of got that offensive line together with Blake Burks and a bunch of other just strong guys, and they rotate some guys in and out. We've known all about that defense and how good it is. Right. And the Charleston Southern's coach said this is going to be the best defensive line they've seen since they played Alabama back on November 21st. You've seen the three big-time guys with LaMichael Fanning as well as Chris Landrum. Fanning's out. Landrum's still in. Brandon Bender's an outstanding linebacker. You can go all across their secondary. I mean, really lots of playmakers everywhere and lots of growth and maturity all season long.
Well, as we mentioned, JSU plays Friday night over at Burgess Snow Field. And the coaches and players are very excited about this Friday night game.
Friday night will be a packed house. I think our students will show back up, our fans will show back up. We should be back in the 20s attendance-wise, so we're excited about that. And it's going to be fun to play under the lights, there's no doubt.
Like a high school game, Friday night lights, been up under them lights again, just like back in the day when I was at Parker. And fortunately, we got a pretty good team at Jacksonville. But it's going to be great atmosphere. The student body is going to be there. Finals going to be over with, so I know they're going to be happy for that. So I'm expecting a big crowd. We're going to play our hearts out for our fans.
Value it a little bit more during the day. You get to focus a little bit more on the game, and it kind of brings you back to those good old days of playing at night with the lights on and everything. I love day games, but night games is just something different about it.
And the Gamecocks play at 7 p.m. against Charleston Southern, and that game is on national television. ESPN2 will be carrying it. Let's shift gears to the Alabama Crimson Tide. The selections came out this past weekend. They will play Michigan State in the Cotton Bowl.
Interesting matchup, especially what the committee did with the 3 and the 4, and that was the biggest question heading into it. Once Michigan State beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, the question was, were they going to just slide into Iowa's spot at 4 or go to 3? And honestly, I think this matchup really favors Alabama because Michigan State plays the same style of offense. Like to run the football, play good defense, and then pass when they can pass. Now, one of the biggest things about Michigan State that they need to do in order to have a chance against Alabama is have big plays with their passing game in order to get Alabama in a pass-happy mode, or in a passing mode like Ole Miss did. The thing is that Michigan State does not do that very well. They've had 3 plays, just 3 all season long, over 40 yards. I just don't think they'll get the separation on the outside in order to force Alabama to do what they don't do as well, which is pass the football. And I just don't know if Michigan State can beat Alabama with Alabama's style of play.
And now the Auburn Tigers are also bowl bound. They'll be playing in the Birmingham Bowl against Memphis.
Not exactly where they wanted to go, and really, to quote Charles Barkley, it's a little bit humiliating for the Auburn Tigers to be here, just judging where they were at the beginning of the season and the kind of football they wanted to play. And at the beginning of the year, they were talking about being a potential college football playoff team, a potential SEC champion. But Memphis provides a really interesting matchup for them because Memphis is 9-3, looking for their first double-digit win in school history, or double-digit win season in school history. And Auburn is losing a defensive coordinator. Memphis lost their head coach, Justin Fuente, to Virginia Tech, Will Muschamp to South Carolina. So it's an interesting dynamic to see how they go. But one of the big things about Memphis is their quarterback. Paxton Lynch is one of the best, completing 68% of his passes, over 3,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. That's hard to do against 7-on-7 defense, much less against the kind of teams they've played. They've already beat Ole Miss, so it's a really intriguing matchup.
We'll be looking forward to seeing both Alabama and Auburn coming up later December and early January. We're going to grab our first timeout. When we come back, we'll talk some high school basketball, so stay with us in the locker room. Back here in the locker room. And guys, high school basketball season beginning for a lot of teams. Few teams around here, they've been going for a while now. And one of those teams, Sacred Heart, the first time ever a 1A ever beat a 7A was last Friday night as Sacred Heart defeated Spain Park.
We've been waiting for a long time to see a 16 seed beat a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. We know it's going to happen at some point, but it hasn't happened yet. It's been close, been a lot of very, very close things. Whenever the 7A and 1A polls came out, you thought some of the peripheral sports, whether it's baseball, whether it's softball, basketball, you knew at some point, girls or boys, a 1A was going to beat a 7A. I did not think it would be this fast, and especially the kind of team that Spain Park is. It just kind of shows you just the kind of program they're building over there at Sacred Heart.
Yeah, I spoke to one of the Spain Park assistant coaches this week in preparation for the Holiday Showcase, which we're going to talk a lot about on this week's show. But he basically said, just tip your hat to Sacred Heart. They shot a sizzling 71% from the field, jumped on them over at Spain Park, and to use a quote from this Spain Park assistant coach, Coach Johnson basically said they ran them out of the gym. But it's still hard for me to imagine, Gerhard, a team with 2 5-star players who are being recruited by almost every college team in the country shouldn't get blown out by anybody, let alone the 1A state champion. I mean, that was kind of a shocker to me when I saw that final score.
71% though, very impressive. But you look at their players, you got DJ Heath, Kevion Nolan, Deontay Wood, those big guys that have been around at Sacred Heart for the last few years. They're impressive.
Yeah, and it kind of speaks to the kind of teams that Spain Park has as compared to Sacred Heart. Spain Park relies on Jamal Johnson and Austin Wiley, the Auburn commit, the 2 guys Mickey was talking about, the 2 5-star guys, highly touted guys. But the way Sacred Heart plays, Kevion Nolan dropped 24 that game. He could score at any point 24 or 11. DJ Heath can score 30 or 7. Deontay Wood the same way. Kavari Ross, who was the MVP of the state championship game, who wasn't their leading scorer all year long. So the fact that they have so many guys that can lead this team in scoring really makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, and as we've said many times in covering Sacred Heart, they may be a 1A school, but these aren't 1A players, your typical 1A players.
Well, let's take a look at our East Alabama Power Poll for high school basketball. We'll take a look at the boys first. Let's go with the girls first there. Anniston at number 1, Spring Garden 2. Gadsden City Titans 3, Jacksonville 4. Pleasant Valley still on that win streak. They're at number 5. Sachs at number 6. Southside 7. White Plains 8. Weaver, another team sneaking in there. They're on a good win streak as well. And Piedmont at number 10. Let's check out the boys now. And there you see we bumped Sacred Heart back up to 1 after that big victory over Spain Park. Gadsden City at number 2. Anniston 3. Cherokee County Warriors at 4, Talladega 5, Westbrook at 6, White Plains at 7. I had a chance to go check out this White Plains Oxford game last Friday night. White Plains winning that one by 4. And there you see Oxford at number 8, Jacksonville at 9, and Alexandria at 10.
Yep, should be interesting when we hit the Holiday Showcase. A lot of these teams will be in it, and we'll see, what a lot of these local teams have as far as playing competition they don't normally play. We will see a lot of these area games as December wraps up and January comes in. We'll see a lot of the teams coming from the same area, same classification, but the Holiday the Holiday Showcase offers a lot of interesting matchups heading into this weekend.
Yeah, a couple of comments there. Anniston has played Spain Park already. Spain Park is kind of a team everybody was looking at with those 2 big recruits they have. Anniston only lost to them by, I think, 5, and then we see Sacred Heart blow them out. Gadsden City gets their shot at them on our showcase on Saturday night. Then the other comment about the poll, it appears as though kind of what we expected as far as Calhoun County goes, the defending Calhoun County champions, Sacred Heart Cardinals, are above everybody else in Calhoun County. Everybody's going to be shooting for them. You're going to have to, if you're going to win a county championship in Calhoun County this year, you're going to have to go through Sacred Heart again.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about this showcase. So we've been discussing here for high school basketball coming up this weekend. There you see our games on Saturday. Game number 1 will begin at 10 a.m. It's Faith Christian takes on 5. And Valley Head and Asbury go at 11:30 for Game 2. Game 3, Jacksonville and Geraldine. And Game 4 features that number 1 team in our power poll, the Sacred Heart Cardinals, as they take on Carrollton, Georgia. Game 5, Plainview and Cherokee County. Game 6, Oxford and North Jackson. Game 7, White Plains and Talladega. And the nightcap is that Gadsden City Spain Park game. Now, Mickey, we do have some changes in this weekend. We've been telling you about the 2-day event the last few weeks, but there has been some changes.
Yeah, best laid plans. You know how the saying goes. But if you notice there, we only have a Saturday schedule this year. We had some games scheduled for Friday night, but unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances regarding the installation of a new PA system at JSU's Pete Matthews Coliseum, also the fact that the football team is playing on Friday night didn't help things as well. So bottom line, after many attempts to move those Friday night games, to move them up earlier in the day, what was eventually decided by all parties involved was just simply to cancel those games as part of the showcase. It's up to those teams if they want to play each other on another date for their schedule so they can get their maximum games in. But we pretty much, because of all those things happening on Friday, we're left with just a full day of Saturday games, which is okay. As you saw there, we've got some great games coming up.
That's right. Join us Saturday beginning at 10 a.m. right here live on TV 24. Another event happening soon here at TV 24 is our annual Pigskin Roundup All-Star Banquet. That will be Monday, December the 14th over at Word Alive in the Coldwater area. John Gross, JSU head coach, they have the big game Friday night. Then Monday he'll be at the All-Star Banquet to speak to our All-Star team, and this is always an exciting event for us.
This is the 10th year for this, and John Gross follows a long lineage of just great football coaches, really at a hot moment of his team's career. We've seen this with Nick Saban, we've seen it with Les Miles, seen it with Gus Malzahn preparing for big bowl games and national championship games. John Gross, by nature of the FCS playoffs, getting ready for a huge game that could take his team into the semifinals. So it's an honor to have him here as the head coach of the number 1 team in the FCS.
Yeah, and we're going to be all pulling for the Gamecocks on Friday night. It'll be an upset if they were not to win this game. It'd be great if they win this game on Friday night. Coach Gross shows up on Monday night at our banquet, getting ready for the semifinals of the FCS playoffs, and that'd be really exciting. And of course, if you're a high school football fan, I think people always enjoy seeing who makes the All-Star team, and this is the best of the best from the East Alabama area. We will unveil that team. 11 offensive players, 11 defensive players, a place kicker and a punter, and a coach of the year. We'll unveil all of those, every member of the team, on Monday night.
We're looking forward to that. Again, 6 p.m. Monday over at Word Alive. We're going to grab another timeout. When we come back, it's the Locker Room Roundtable, so stay with us. Back here in the locker room, and it's time for the Locker Room Roundtable. Let's start things off with a little NBA talk. The Golden State Warriors, they have a chance to break that 95-96 Bulls season record with most wins. Could that happen?
We have been talking about things in sports that are going on over the last few months. I really don't know there's any more fun and better television right now than Golden State Warrior basketball. They're fantastic and phenomenal to watch. As we shoot today, they're 23-0, average about 115 points per game. They have the MVP of the league and the MVP of the finals, Steph Curry, who's on a complete hot streak. 32 points per game. They also have Klay Thompson, who averages a lot. They have Draymond Green, healthy Andrew Bogut. This team is so fun and so exciting. But to your original question about the 95-96 Bulls, the Western Conference is just so tough. And if it was to the East, if this was the Cleveland Cavaliers doing this, then I say yes, maybe, because the East is not as strong as the West. But the West, with the Los Angeles Clippers and Minnesota Timberwolves, who look better, you can never count out the Dallas Mavericks or the San Antonio Spurs with championship pedigree. I just don't see it happening this year, but the run they're having right now is unbelievable.
The answer to your question is they can. It's really up to them, because if they look at every game in a vacuum, they're better than anybody that they're going to play. They're better, a lot better. But the thing is, do they want it bad enough? One thing I've been impressed with this team is when you win a championship, a lot of times it's tough to come back and stay hungry. Not only did they come back hungry, they came back hungrier. And Michael Jordan was able to keep the Bulls hungry because he was so competitive. Steph Curry and those other guys, they seem to have that same fire. So, yes, they can do it. But I tell you, if somebody's going to beat them, you're going to have to get them on a night when at least two of those guys are off. It's not enough for just Steph Curry to be off, or Klay Thompson to be off, or Draymond Green to be off. You got to have a couple of them off because they shoot the ball as a team so well. They play unselfishly. They don't care who gets the credit. So it is. I love the way they've revolutionized the game. They haven't done it by themselves. The Spurs were really the first team to introduce unselfishness and ball sharing in professional basketball. But a lot of other teams have followed suit, but nobody's doing it like the Warriors.
Exactly. And another interesting thing about them is they're never out of a ball game.
No.
They can be down 20 points and you can't turn the television off, because just like that, they can go from 12 or 20 down to 2 or 3 up. And just because by nature of the fact they can shoot the three with, like Mickey was saying, that space and pace kind of ball they play.
Let's talk some college football now. A big announcement this past weekend, Will Muschamp to South Carolina.
We've been talking about this for a long time as far as with Auburn fans, if Will Muschamp can leave and what his next move is and why. And if this is just to grab another head coaching job, I kind of somewhat question it. But the thing about this move to me is that he does this knowing what's going on at Clemson. He does this knowing the new fire at Georgia with Kirby Smart. And, you know, the defense this year for Auburn was what it was, and we'll see what he does with South Carolina. They can get talent over there. It's not a fertile recruiting ground like Georgia is and what Clemson's turning into by nature of the product they're putting on the field. It's the more interesting move of this offseason that I've seen so far of this coaching carousel.
I think it shows a little bit of desperation for him to get back and try to prove that what happened to him at Florida was an aberration in his career. I don't think this is a great job, but you know, Gerhard mentioned Georgia and Clemson. They've got him sandwiched there. He better hope there's some Jadeveon Clowneys and some Marcus Lattimores coming into that state, being born into that state. He better find a good offensive coordinator. That killed him at Florida. He can control who he hires to run the offense. He can't control who's born in South Carolina. I think he's got his work cut out for him, and it's a big gamble because if he fails again as a head coach, you know, the luster will really come off. So I think to me it shows how desperate he was to get back and prove that what happened at Florida was not really the Will Muschamp.
Exactly.
Auburn and Alabama now both looking for defensive coordinators. What's next for the teams?
For Alabama, I think the answer solves itself a little bit within their own staff. I really like the addition of Mel Tucker if Nick Saban wants to go that route. The defensive backs have been outstanding this year for Alabama, and Mel Tucker, by Saban's own words, has been a large part of that. And you can look at the exact same thing for Auburn. They can hire in staff as well because they have a capable guy in T. Robinson, who's been unbelievable with this staff so far as well. So I don't think both teams have to look very far to find one. Nick Saban's not a guy that loves the splash hire. We'll see if he goes that way. I mean, he likes it on offense, obviously with Lane Kiffin, but he doesn't love that splash hire. And if you got somebody that's already on your staff that's capable, then I think they'll go with it. I think what helps Alabama out, as opposed to Auburn, is that Kirby Smart is going to stay with Alabama through the playoffs, and Auburn loses Will Muschamp immediately.
Well, there's two different scenarios. It really doesn't matter at Alabama. Let's take, for example, if Rhett Lashley left Auburn, would anybody be concerned about who Gus Malzahn's coordinator was? No, because it's his offense. Same thing with Alabama. So that one is not an issue. For Auburn, it's a bigger issue because Malzahn doesn't want to have anything to do with the defensive side. But to me, him letting Travaris Robinson go with Muschamp to South Carolina either tells me one of two things. Either he's greatly underestimating what he's up against, or either he feels like he can hire somebody better. But to me, it was. I know there was risk in hiring him as a coordinator because he's so young. He doesn't have a lot of experience at it, but he's an ace recruiter, especially in South Florida. I think that kind of would have balanced each other out. But he chose to not go that route, and I don't know. It's got a lot of Auburn fans nervous letting Travaris Robinson get away.
Well, let's talk about the college football playoff. The announcement was made this past weekend. We talked a little earlier about Alabama, Michigan State. What are y'all's thoughts on the top four?
Alabama probably comes out with a better matchup as far as on paper goes. They're a 9.5-point favorite according to Vegas. And the way I see Michigan State is the way I saw Georgia. The way I see Michigan State is the way I saw LSU. A little bit more of an upgrade, but they played the same kind of style that Alabama plays. The committee really did Alabama a favor by not matching up against Oklahoma to start off the year or start off the playoff. Didn't match up against Clemson. They both run somewhat of the same kind of offenses, wide open. They use the entire 53 in the third. With Alabama and Michigan State, the one thing I point to, we talked about at the beginning of the show, can Michigan State make enough big plays? Because that's what beats Alabama. You saw it with Ole Miss. You've seen it with Texas A&M in the past. Big plays down the stretch, because I just don't think that Alabama will have Michigan State will have enough firepower on offense to beat that Michigan State defense consistently.
I don't have a problem with the four that's in it, even though personally I really still feel like the way Ohio State beat Michigan, they're probably better than Clemson. But it's okay with the four that's in there. To me, all it's about is when is Alabama and Oklahoma going to play?
Yeah.
You know, is it going to be a first-round game or the national championship? Well, the way it's seeded now, it's going to be a national championship. I think Clemson could beat Oklahoma, even though I don't think they will. I don't think Michigan State can beat Alabama. So to me, it's all about Alabama and Oklahoma here.
The Heisman finalists came out this week. Deshaun Watson, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. What's your thoughts on the Heisman this weekend?
I'm surprised they really picked three. I mean, you had guys like Leonard Fournette and Ezekiel Elliott that were kind of fringe guys. And, you know, they have what they have so far. I'll tell you what, this might be one of the tightest votes we've ever seen. When you look at Derrick Henry, we're a little tied, more tied to Derrick Henry because we see him in the SEC. His numbers are unbelievable. Rushed for over 90 times over the last two games between Auburn and the SEC championship game. But I like what Christian McCaffrey has done. He broke Barry Sanders' all-purpose record. I mean, he could do it every way possible. He can rush, he can receive, he can punt return, kickoff return. If I had a vote today, it'll probably be Christian McCaffrey.
I think that it'll be Henry. I just kind of feel like that's that he's going to wind up winning it. And really, I'd be fine with me if he did. I don't really like the Heisman Award anyway, but I'm okay really with any of these guys winning it. But what Henry's done with really Alabama not having a real serious threat at quarterback, it's been pretty amazing. He's been able to rack up that yardage.
We'll look forward to see all of this stuff in the next few weeks as we'll keep you updated on the playoff games here on The Locker Room. Be sure to join us this Saturday for the Holiday Hoops Showcase right here live on TV 24. First game beginning at 10 a.m. Thanks so much for joining us this week in The Locker Room. We'll be back next week, so join us then.